So the first one is American Football by American Football. Or, as it's better known, LP4. And I guess I'll take the lead on this one, seeing as I'm just get the shot. Yeah, dressed for the occasion. I'll tell you a short story about this. So I ordered this. They had two different ones. There was like this black one, and then there was like a red one, which didn't have the collar. And I was like, oh, I'll tend to prefer black shirts anyway. I was like, the black one looks really good. Anyway, it turns up, and I just looked like a referee. I was like, I should have got the red one. Like every time I put it on, I'm like, I look a lot like a referee.
On your Sunday league match.
Yeah. I'm not sure I can wear this out, but anyway.
It looks good though. You look good.
Yeah, it's a good one for around the house, but yeah, maybe not to. I'll get a lot of like whistles and cards thrown at me, I think. But so yeah, I mean, American Football, primary project from Mike Kinsella, who's featured a few times on the pod through his other projects, Lies and Owen. But yeah, pleased that we can finally dig into an American Football record. Because, yeah, I mean, the story of the band, pretty legendary at this point. 4 high school friends in, well, 3 high school friends, Mike Kinsella, Steve Lamos, and Steve Holmes. Mike had left his original outfit, Cap and Jazz, and another lesser-known band called The One Up Downstairs. And they started, this new outfit, exploring a blend of like post-hardcore and math rock. And then in the late 90s, released their self-titled debut album, American Football, with the, now iconic house. But yeah, at the time, that album just came out to like very little fanfare. And I think within a year of that first album coming out, the band basically just broke up. They went off to very, very unceremoniously, just went off to college. Like it was like the kind of high school band, released an album, went off to college. Mike started doing obviously the Owen stuff shortly after. And that was seemingly that for American Football. But it was one of those that, in the decade following its release, that album just became this cult classic, this seminal work that just inspired like countless bands and basically helped form what we now know as like the Midwest Emo subgenre that's about today. And it was the point where, this album got such recognition that they decided to play a few reunion shows back in 2014, which is actually where Nate Kinsella, Mike's cousin, joined the band. And it's also where I first discovered them as well.
Nice.
Was just watching the Reading Leeds Festival coverage on BBC iPlayer, and this band popped up that I'd never heard of, and I heard them play "Stay Home," and it was one of those like revelatory moments where I was like, "Who is this band, and where have they been all my life? This is like, this is music for me," kind of thing. After that, just became immersed in that debut album, like so many people have, and just been following them ever since from there. So that's kind of, I guess, my background with discovering American Football. And I guess it was the same for a lot of people, because what started out as, it was meant to be a couple of reunion shows, then became, American Football are back together. We got that long-awaited like sophomore album in 2016, which was everything you could have wanted. I think it ended up in my top 10 albums of the year in 2016. I think Drowned in Sound famously gave it like a perfect 10, which I wouldn't go that far, but it's certainly a great album. And then a couple of years later, LP3, which was a nice evolution of their sound. Whereas LP2 was kind of like almost like them playing the hits of that first record, LP3 was kind of like the natural evolution for the band. You had, Hayley Williams from Paramore guest vocaling, Rachel Goswell from Slowdive coming in on there as well. And they both like kind of offered like a contrast to Mike's vocals. And for me, I'd say that's probably their strongest American football record. I really think they kind of progressed with that album. So yeah, we arrived at LP4 back at the start of May with like this huge weight of expectation. I mean, particularly for me, it's one of those where it was like one of my favorite bands of recent years, coming off like this perfect trilogy of albums. Obviously, Mike's other projects as well. Like, I've absolutely loved all of them as well. So when this got announced, they released Bad Moons, the lead track, which is this beautiful like 8-minute wonder. Yeah, it's just a stunning song. Easily one of the songs of the year for me. Yeah, just dreamy guitar passages. Mike pulling out like those classic witty one-liners that he has about his ex-wife meeting like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but it's Hyde spelled Hide, which is very like condescending with himself as always. And it's a song centered on that feeling of like hopelessness that consumes you when you come out of like a broken relationship. But then midway through, Mike finds someone new and the song just erupts into this like glorious, like 3-minute instrumental passages with some like just really soaring guitar riffs. And it's just like this triumphant, it's almost like a rebirth, like the end of that song, the way it plays out. I just think it's outstanding. And then No Feeling we got soon after, which was another great track. With Brendan Yates of Turnstile helping out on backing vocals on the chorus. Both of those songs were really nice, like music videos too. So, off the back of like the previous work, those two songs, my anticipation going into that like first play back in the start of May was like fever pitch. I was like,
you did the countdown, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were midnight countdown. You literally used to do
I was there at midnight. I was there at midnight for it. And yeah, as has become a running theme on this podcast, sometimes those high expectations can be a curse. And I think for the first few listens, yeah. I mean, initially I was quite disappointed. I think out the gate there was nothing gripping me like their earlier work did, or indeed those two singles that they released. And I mean, it's one of those as well where the press around the record, like the band had been talking about how their sound had evolved on this record, and there's nothing on, for me, there's nothing on here that feels as daring or as interesting sonically as what Mike and Nate gave us on the Lies record that they did 2 years ago, which, considering that album supposedly came out of them starting to throw ideas against the wall for an American football LP4. I thought we were going to get something maybe as bold as that. Like that was kind of like my thinking when they started talking about, it's a real revolution, thinking about that Lies record. I was like, okay. But for me, this feels like even less experimental than LP3. I think it's more of a regression back to like their traditional sound for me, particularly with certain elements across the instrumentation, I'd say. So yeah, I think so a lot of initial disappointment, I think, and I think it has remained probably my least favorite of the 4 American football records, and indeed one of my least favorite like Mike Kinsella records for some time. However, that's obviously American football's lofty standards, and I will say this: the more I've listened to it, it ended up my most played album of May, despite all of this. And it was one of those that the more I dived into it, the more it has grown on me. I'm still not. I'd still put it bottom of the pile, but in terms of, it's still an American football record. I'm still really appreciative of it. I mean, Man Overboard, I love as an opener. Feel like they do a great job of marrying like the sounds to the imagery Mike is painting on in the lyrics on that song about being like lost at sea. You definitely get that in like the sounds that are presented there. Patron Saint Pale was one that I really wasn't fussed about initially, but that has massively won me over. I just love the jangly guitars on that song. and it's like rawness. It's quite raw instrumentation and vocals on that song. And then for me, the best of the non-singles is Wake Her Up, which is very like it, very The Cure for me. Got the dreaming like backing vocal work from Natalie Lou of Wisp. And then you've got that goosebump inducing like trumpet from Steve Lamos, which again is just classic American football. And then the song right at the end, No Soul to Save, I'll quickly shout out that one too. Just love the gospel harmonies at the end of that track. A nice way to round up the record. So yeah, appreciate probably rambled on slightly there, but it's one of those where there's a lot to dissect with this one. And overall, I'm still a bit, I'm still a little bit torn on how I feel about it. I think ultimately where I've landed is it's simultaneously my least favorite entry in their catalog, but also still probably one of my favorite records of certainly this year that I'm playing quite a lot. And I do find myself going back to it, but I think that's more my love for American football more than necessarily, necessarily how good it is. So I don't know, but yeah, I think that's the nature of the beast. You know, when it's a band you love releases a project like this that maybe doesn't meet, as you say, their own standards or your own expectations for their work, but it's still maybe more. You still love it more than other records you listen to because of your connection to them and their music. So, but yeah, that's the case. That's the case for me. I'd love to hear what you made of LP4.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I'm going to take a step back because your love of American football is far better than mine. I first initialized from their first debut. I think that's the first time that I've ever. Never Meant was always, it's just an emo anthem that's on every sorrowful playlist, every film, the heartbreak, beautiful lost time song. So I came into LP4 as a kind of a fresh fan, if you like. I listened to Comfortably Numb of LP3. LP2 was something that I didn't really listen to. So for me, I came in with a kind of more fresh pair of ears onto it.
Yeah.
Not knowing anything about the band, essentially, apart from I love their story, how they made this album, they went away and they came back because it was just loved by so much, and I love that story. But the album itself, I actually really enjoyed it. I loved how they made my favorite quote that they said was that their first album they could only make when they were children, teenagers, and this album they can only make when they're adults. It's essentially, it's these men just pouring their lives into kind of midlife crisis, going through divorce, regret, guilt. So yeah, I like the kind of breadth of where they've been and where they're going now. I think it's far more expansive. Of course, I'm comparing the debut to this. I'm missing a bit too crucial albums in between. But from a fresh, coming from an album on its own, if you like, as a project, I did really enjoy it. I think you're right. I think Bad Moons is a big takeaway, and you can definitely tell that was the emphasis, if you like, of this album. They've gone down that line. That's the baby. That's the golden ticket. So yeah, you're right. That album, that song is going to be certainly in that list, if you like, songs of the year. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it far more than you. But you have that knowledge of the past two records that you felt more inclined to. So yeah, that's my view on it.
Great stuff. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think sometimes it can be better that way, not to have those expectations, and you know, sometimes a album can just pleasantly surprise you that way.